All right, we back, man. So while we were talking, the guy we were on the phone with earlier, he just enrolled.
He just enrolled. Yeah, Christopher Drumming,
Hey, shout
the
out to
guy who
Mr.
was satisfied with paying $1,500 for 3 PDFs and an email, just enrolled into our 90-day course.
So how often does that happen that literally you talk to somebody on the phone and they were dissatisfied wherever they were, and then they turn around and enroll with you?
I would say of the calls I get like that, similar to that, I would say about 40% of the time.
Okay. And what are the things they're usually dissatisfied with?
Well, price, number one, and then value, and then not being able, because when he said ghosted, remember when the call first started, I thought he was talking about me, so I had to have him repeat that. I said, well, can you repeat what you saying? He said, yeah, the guy that I got my training for before I called you, I'm listening to your YouTube. He gave me 3 emails or 3 PDFs, and I was supposed to have a one-on-one with him today, but I can't find him. He ghosted me. So I heard that word ghost. I was thinking he was talking about me.
So,
because I never ghost anyone.
So the guy gave him his money. And then when it was time to actually do the coaching and the one-on-one calls that he promised him that was going to help him,
right? Then
he couldn't find him.
Casper the friendly ghost. Casper, yeah.
And then he said he saw you on what, YouTube?
Yeah.
So what do you do on YouTube?
I have a YouTube channel, Dispatcher 101 Training for Beginners, and I also have a freight broker training 101 for beginners, where I give. So some of the Zoom trainings that I do in my online training, some of them I make private, and then some of them I make public.
Okay.
Depends on the content and how private how in depth it is, and so I give value to I got like 30,000 YouTube Dispatcher subscribers and about 7,300 freight broker subscribers.
So I heard you say freight broker. So what's the difference between freight broker and a dispatcher?
So we define dispatcher as someone who sends off the truck drivers on under loads, under freight, under cargo, under commodities, from pickup at the shippers to deliveries at the receiver. A freight broker is someone who arranges. Now, this is the literal definition according to DOT and what's called the FMCSA, Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. So if you are an instructor, let me say this caveat first. If you are an instructor, being able to teach should roll off the tongue, right? So a freight broker is someone who arranges for the transportation of freight. They do that by procuring or getting the shipments or the cargo loads from the shippers, their customers, and they sell those loads for a fee to authorized motor carriers, truck drivers. That's what freight brokers do. And you have to have what's called a broker license or a broker authority. You have to have a bond and other requirements before your license become active, and you are legally able to do that, to arrange for transportation.
Okay. So how much does it cost to start to become a freight broker? Not the class, but just the work part.
So the application for a broker authority as well as a motor carrier authority, because it's the same application on the FMCSA website, it's a $300 non-refundable one-time payment. That's number one, the application. After you fill out the application and submit that, then you have to apply for your bond, what's called a bond. And the bond amount is $75,000. It's a one-time annual premium for that. It's based off of credit. Most bond companies either do what's called a surety bond or a trust fund. Most new brokers will go the surety bond route because it's credit-based. So the better your credit, the lower your premium. So I have a bond company relationship with a bond company that can give you a low premium for the year of $750 to have a $75,000 bond coverage for that year. And then I've seen as high as $2,250. So you need a bond. So that's another cost. So you figure $300 for the application to be a broker.
Okay.
Let's go to low end, $750 for the bond.
Okay.
Then you need a UCR, which is a Unified Carrier Registration. Brokers need to apply for that because some brokers are asset-based. What do I mean by asset-based? Some brokers have their own trucks and trailers. Trailers are also considered assets. Okay. So a UCR, that's a one-time payment about between $75 and $100. So you add that in, right? I should have had my calculator up. And then as a broker, you need to also have what's called a form filed with the FMCSA called the Form BOC3, which is that form designates a process agent or a process server for your brokerage. But what does that do? If a shipper or a motor carrier files a claim against the bond of the broker for unethical or just bad behavior, then A process server is someone who steps in. You know those people who walk up on you and say, "Hey, you've been served. Are you SADON?" "Yeah, I'm SADON. What do you want?" "You've been served." Basically, that's what they do. So that's a BOC3. That's a form BOC3. And then some brokers take on extra supplemental insurance to make themselves look good in front of their customers who they are soliciting to for shipments, for loads. The extra supplemental insurance is called CCI, contingent cargo, or E&O, errors and omissions. So contingent cargo is contingent upon the carrier's cargo insurance. So the carrier's cargo insurance gets covered first, and then the broker's insurance kicks in if the value of the damage is more than the carrier's cargo. And then errors and omissions protects the brokers if they make a mistake on a shipment. They make an error or they omit something, right?
Okay.
That's what errors and omissions insurance does. So if a broker has a flatbed shipment, they forget to tell the driver to tarp the load. Driver picks up the load, straps it in but doesn't tarp it, transports it to the receiver. Receiver rejects it. That's the broker's fault because he didn't tell him that load needed to be tarped. Okay, so those are the minimum requirements of a freight broker.
So if you're a dispatcher, do you need any of that stuff?
Negative. You don't need any of that. Dispatchers don't need to have any type of operating authority as a dispatcher. All you need is your business set up and then a carrier to agree with you to be their dispatcher. And you have to have that contract, that dispatcher agreement.
So why would a person want to be a freight broker versus a dispatcher?
Because conceivably, freight brokers theoretically make more money than dispatchers because they are the ones who are procuring, or I keep saying procuring, but just getting shipments, getting loads from the shippers, right? And if a shipper gives you a load tender paperwork, basically saying, "Hey, I got 20 shipments I need moved this month." Each shipment pays $5,000. Brokers get to put their margins on that and sell that load at a discount to the carriers, and that's how they make their money. So let's say, for example, each load a broker gets from a shipper, $5,000, they take 20% off of that. So 20% of $5,000 is what? $1,000, right? So what's left? $4,000 to sell to the carrier to get them motivated to move that load. Now, as a smart broker, I wouldn't post that load on a load board for $4,000. I'm going to post it for like $3,500 to give myself wiggle room to negotiate. So I got $1,000 in my pocket as a broker. And I got a load $4,000 left, but I only posted it for $3,500, so I got $500 to play with. So if a carrier calls me and say, "Hey, I don't want it for $35, give me $38." Well, I got that $500 to play with, right? That's how the game works on the broker side.
So can I be a freight broker if I have a felony?
Yes.
Do I need a degree to be a freight broker?
No.
So I could be a freight broker from home as long as I can get the insurances and stuff that we talked about.
Yep.
So now you teach freight brokering 101, right?
I do.
So what would I learn in the freight broker program that would help me get that stuff done?
Well, the first thing you will learn is how to understand what a freight broker does. What is their role in transportation, right? Number one. Number two, we teach you how to properly apply for the authority. www.fmcsa.dot.gov/registration. Again, if you're an instructor, this stuff should roll off your tongue, right? You should be able to tell people literally where to go. www.fmcsa.dot.gov. Look it up, /registration. On that site, you're going to go to registration. It's going to take you right to the portal. You're going to get to what's called a URS system, the Unified Registration System. On there, it's going to be a new applicant or a returning applicant, someone who started the process but had to step away from the computer for a minute, go to the bathroom or whatever. Then they got to come back and log back in. In there, you fill out electronically what's called the OP-1 form. That is the application for a motor carrier and broker property authority. That's literally the application. It has 8 sections on there. You fill that out. At the end of that section, you pay the $300 non-refundable fee for that. So under section 2, where it says type of authority, however many boxes you check, that's how much you pay $300 for. So if you check 2 boxes, then you're paying $600 because $300 per checked box. But that's the process there. After you do that, the FMCSA will put your information as a matter of public record into their what's called register. Because everybody who applies for a new authority as a motor carrier or as a freight broker gets listed in the FMCSA's register because people need to see that this person has applied for a new authority, right? And then in that time, there is a 10-day protest because somebody may see you and say, "Hey, this person's not qualified to be a broker," so they may protest that. That's in the 10-day window. After that, they can't do it. Then in that process also, you got to do all those other requirements, getting your bond, your UCR, BLC3, and all that stuff.
So would you recommend somebody started out as a freight broker?
No, me personally, I wouldn't. And I know it sounds weird because my broker training costs a little bit more than my dispatcher training, but I want you to succeed. So I'd rather you start off as a dispatcher because that's the easiest barrier to entry, the easiest entry point from a financial standpoint.
Okay.
If we look at that from money standpoint, like your affordability, your budget, start off as a dispatcher, transition into a freight broker because as a dispatcher, you're going to build relationships with brokers. So you're going to understand what they do in your journey as a dispatcher. So when you become a broker, the transition is a little bit smoother and easier.
And plus, that'll give you the money you need to get the other pieces.
Exactly. So, yeah.
So if you're a dispatcher already, then the next step for you would be to expand your business into brokering.
In the brokering, or possibly even there's a middle ground too. As a trucking company, you can start a trucking company too. But we're talking about dispatching and brokering. So yes, if you're talking about just those two, yes, dispatching into a freight broker.
And then I hear some people talk about doing 3-in-1. So the 3-in-1 would be dispatcher, freight broker, and then having your own trucks.
Right. Or dispatcher, trucking, and then freight broker. So
you could at some point just scale up and have the whole gamut in one house.
You certainly can. You can have a logistics company. Logistics, because logistics, the word logistics it can encompass dispatching, trucking, and brokering. Right? Okay. And I usually tell people, if you're going to do that, then create 3 separate entities, 3 separate businesses. You know, most people say, well, I want to put a fictitious name or DBA, logistics, DBA, dispatching, DBA, trucking, or DBA, freight broker, but it's under the same entity. So you run the risks there. You have liability and things like that, insurance prices and stuff like that. So if you separate them, but all under the same, conceivably the same umbrella, you should be fine.
Okay.
So
here's another question. Because I know a lot of our kids especially are struggling to find work. Okay. So if you were a freight broker, could you then hire your kids to be dispatchers?
Yes.
Okay. So
let me
help me understand.
You can hire your kids to be dispatchers if you have a freight brokerage that's asset based. If you have your trucks and trailers as part of your freight brokerage, they will be dispatching the trucks under your brokerage because they're only getting loads from the shippers for their trucks. And then your children can dispatch those trucks off of the loads that they've gotten through the brokerage. So yes.
Okay. So you could definitely make this a family business.
Of course.
Okay. So your kids could be involved, your wife could be involved, your mom could be involved, and you could have it all in the same house.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So how much actually experience do you need? Do you need years and years of experience? Maybe 6 years? What?
Not years and years of experience, but I would say if you come from a call center or a sales background, it'll be helpful for you in brokering because when you solicit to the shippers to get their loads, if you have some kind of sales or call center experience, that'll kind of go a long way. But if you're coming in brand new, bare bones, no experience at all, of course, it's going to be more of a challenge. I'll be honest with you. So, yeah.
So, again, you could have a felony, or you don't need a degree. Okay, but if you have some sales experience, some call center experience, it would help you tremendously.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So this is really the underdog's opportunity to come up.
Very much so. If the underdog knew that the transportation industry was out here, number one, and then number two, if they knew that it's not going anywhere, because again, things move out here every day. So transportation industry encompasses a lot of things.
Okay. So and here's a question. This is a good question because I know people always want to know this. Do you think they're hiding this information from us?
Well, number one, who are they? And then number two, yes. So, yeah. The big boys don't want you to know what's going on because they don't want competition, obviously, right? Mm-hmm. But it's hard to hide, what is it now? $1.7 trillion a year.
Okay.
That's what the transportation industry generates across different modes of transportation. When I say modes of transportation, rail, ocean, air, and trucking. Trucking alone is close to $800 billion. So it's hard to hide $800 billion in annual revenue in one industry. So,
well, see, I'm asking because I never heard about this stuff when I was in high school. I mean, I never hear anybody who's talking about anything other than getting a CDL.
Well, and not only that, but high school doesn't prepare you. They doesn't teach you about entrepreneurship. They teach you to be an employee. They
Okay.
don't teach you, and they teach you to get in debt by going to college and taking on loans and stuff like
Okay.
that. They don't teach you about entrepreneurship and setting up your own businesses and things like that, or about finances and economics. They prepare you to be an employee, and they funnel you through a system that puts you in debt. So
Okay.
high school does not do that.
So realistically, you could come out of high school, start out as a dispatcher, work as a dispatcher, then eventually open your own brokerage, and then you could purchase some trucks and never have had to go to college.
You just laid out a 3 to 5 year plan right there. So yeah, or maybe less, depending on what your hustle and grind is. But yes,
Okay. So if you're a mom and you have a kid who maybe has an IAP or who maybe just school wasn't for him, it doesn't mean he can't be successful.
correct.
Okay. So this might be a great way for a lot of, young urban kids who are looking to avoid the military and don't really think college is for them to go.
Avoid. That's a good word. Avoid. It's a great word. But yes, the honest, yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying, like there's an alternative,
But there's definitely an alternative.
because, and when I was a kid and, maybe when you were a kid too, it's like, you going to get a job
Go to the
or
military.
you go to the military.
Well, I didn't want to go to. I don't fight other people's wars, so I definitely didn't go to the military. So I went to college.
Okay.
So,
I went to
and
college too.
and it put me in $22,000 debt. That was I don't have it anymore, but I'm just saying. So nowadays, a college degree, to me, in my opinion, I don't want to speak for everyone. It's almost equivalent to a high school diploma,
Hmm.
right? And then the job market's down, things like that, economics, so blah blah blah. So, but yeah,
So if you're a single mom and you got a son who maybe has a felony, who maybe struggled in high school and hasn't gone to college, this is a great opportunity for him.
right. It is because it gives you an alternative and it takes away the psychological and mental health element because you got a felony, you're always feeling that everybody's against you and no one wants to give you a job because every application you touch, have you been convicted of a
So it's
felony
like they
in
keep
X amount of
reminding
years?
you're a felon.
It's like keeping you down. It keeps reminding you of a felon. You paid your debt to society.
Okay.
When you come out, why are you still being punished? It's almost like you got a scarlet letter on you, right?
Mhm.
So have you ever been convicted of a felony either overall or within the last X amount of years? So when a brother or sister even, because we have women who
Have felonies
have
as
felonies
well.
too. So when you see those on the application and you're like, man, you might tear it up. So, but yeah, so this is an alternative to that. This eliminates that because you don't even fill out applications. You're forming your own company. You're not relying on an employer to be an employee. You are the employer and you employ your own self.
So here's another scenario. So you're a young mom. Obviously, if you're a young mom, daycare is extremely important. Okay. So do you really need to have daycare if you do dispatching?
No, because you're working from home, so you can watch your own child at the house, and that can be an expense you can eliminate. You know,
Okay, so unlike having to go to work and maybe one of the dollars, Dollar Tree, Dollar General,
dollars.
Family Dollar, or
Right.
any of those, and work maybe 7 to 8 hours at what, $15, $17 an hour,
Right.
you could do from home a full-time job in about how many hours?
You want to keep pace with the brokers and the shippers, so I would say 6 to 8 hours.
Okay, so no overtime, and then you can literally just get right up and go make dinner.
Conceivably, yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so young single moms, people who don't have college degrees, people who maybe had some difficulties in high school, people who had a felony are not disqualified.
Right. When you listen like that, all the social outcasts, right? That's what it sounds like you're saying. But yes, all the ones who are having difficult times getting employment or who want to be entrepreneurs but are having challenges in doing so, yes, this is an opportunity for you to do that, either in dispatching or in this case, freight brokering. So
But let's keep it a buck because we know each other. I mean, we're sitting here like we're strangers, but we're really not strangers.
no,
Okay, so we both.
I really don't like you, but go ahead.
It's fine. He loves me, but anyway. But I mean, you and I both know what it's like to be overworked and underpaid.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's not even just the outcast; it's people who are hardworking,
Right.
honest,
Right.
people with integrity
Right.
who are working hard as heck.
Just can't get past that glass ceiling. So freight broker training is the hammer so you can bust that glass ceiling.
Right. And it
become your
will
own.
and it'll allow you to then hire your own family members
Yes.
and build a legacy
Generational
without
wealth.
leaving your house.
Generational wealth. That's correct.
Right. So you can leave a legacy without leaving your house.
Legacy without leaving the house. Yep. So that's another one I'm stealing from you. Another phrase. Yeah. So get ready.
Okay.
But yes.
So you can leave a legacy without leaving your house.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Now, you can, but I want to be realistic with you too, though. It's going to take some time. Not a lot of time, but I'm saying the time it takes for you to actually learn your craft, either dispatching or in this case, freight broker. You have to learn your craft, you have to understand it, and then you have to apply what you've learned in such a way that you get or procure the freights from the shippers, and you have the skill set to manage those load tenders through your systems as a freight broker in order to get carriers to move those loads so that you can get paid.
Okay.
Okay. And in our training, we go over that step by step.
So is there live training for that?
There is live training.
Okay.
As with the dispatching side, we have every second and fourth week, we have live Zoom calls in those weeks, 2 days a week, as opposed to 3 days on the dispatcher side. Every Tuesday and Fridays at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Those are also recorded, and they are also stored on our freight broker side portal in our Zoom library for the freight brokers.
Okay. So what else do they get? I mean, I know there's live trainings. So is there modules and self-paced stuff too?
There are 4 modules on the freight broker side. There's ebooks over there, glossaries over there, tools and resources, forms and documents. We have 2 carrier level load boards on the freight broker side so that freight brokers can understand how to post loads on the load board and understand the use case and the functionality of the load boards. So we got those as well, forms and documents, all types of templates, everything. So
you say templates. I mean, like I could just go into your library
right.
and pull down whatever template I needed to use in order to help close the deal.
Not only that, but let me give you an example of a major template that you're going to need as a freight broker. So as a freight broker, you have 2 customers.
Okay.
You have the shippers who you are getting the loads from that you have the contract with, and you have the truck drivers or the motor carriers that you are selling the loads to that you have to contract and onboard to your freight brokerage. So there are different packets or packet types. So on the shipper side, there's a broker shipper packet.
Mm-hmm.
And on the carrier side, there is a broker carrier packet. So what's in the broker shipper packet? And we have, these are templates in our portal,
okay.
right? So what's in the broker shipper packet is the broker shipper agreement, mm-hmm. along with other documents that make up the packet.
Okay.
The same thing on the broker carrier packet. There is the broker carrier agreement and other documents that make up that packet. So, and we show you what they are. We explain to you the purpose of those documents that makes up that packet, mm-hmm. on the carrier and the shipper side. So we go into grave detail so that you can understand what it is you're doing as a logistics provider. That's another name for a freight broker. Logistics provider. Someone who arranges for transportation of freight. They don't move the freight. That's the motor carrier's job. But they arrange for the transportation of freight. Freight broker.
Okay.
So like a real estate broker, an insurance broker, they are the middleman in that process.
They broker the deal.
They broker the deal. In this case, freight, cargo.
Okay. So what's the investment for Freight Broker 101?
Our investment for a single member enrollment is $899. It's still less than $1,000. $899. Remember on the dispatcher side, we were talking about the guy who spent $1,500 for dispatching service.
Right.
Well, even with freight broker, it's still less than what he paid for his dispatch. $899, and from now until July 2nd, we are having a 15% off sale of that $899 for the single member. 90 days access, same concept as the dispatcher side. 90 days access, and then month-to-month subscription if you want to continue. But that's the price point.
So quick question. Now we see people charging a lot for these programs.
$2,500, $3,000 for 2 days.
Okay. So why are you charging what you charge?
Well, number one, I'm not trying to break the bank. Number two, I know who my audience is because these are beginners, people who are trying to get out of a situation that's tough for them, employment, maybe not having a job, maybe just coming home from the penitentiary, whether it's male or female. Difficult time, trying to change the trajectory of their future, mm-hmm. right? So why would I charge something that they can't afford to get to what I'm trying to teach you? Right?
So you're trying to help people get started instead of you just getting rich.
Correct.
Okay.
Right. Correct. Because I believe in helping people more so than the money's going to come. Okay. So
this is really about the people.
Of course. Yeah. Okay. All day. Because my passion is helping others, training, whether it's training or giving money to a homeless person, whatever, helping others. Because I like to give as opposed to
But obviously, we need to charge something because
Right. Well,
all
it's
of
a business, right? I gotta maintain. I got overhead, things like that. But my profit margin is not as high as people think. But I do have overhead. I still have to You still have to understand that we are operating a business.
Okay.
But my price points are set to reflect the lowest price possible I can pass on to the person who's going to purchase the course, and we make our profit margins too. So
Okay. But like you said, I mean, it's $7.99, but you could conceivably make your whole investment back in a week.
right. So it's $8.99, 15% off. So whatever that number is. But yes, you can make your with the freight broker side is you cannot make it back in a week because as a freight broker, you're going to be working on getting the shippers. Once you get the shippers, it's going to take you about a week or two to get a carrier to procure and pick up those loads and make your margin. So yeah, I would say within a month's time if you do it the correct way. That's more realistic.
All right, so it's $8.99 just to be clear. Maybe I misquoted before. I don't want to confuse anybody, but it's $8.99.
Right.
Okay, and if we were just seeing anywhere between $1,000 a week per load, is that how we would look at it?
Right. So shippers give freight. So shippers work with two people. They want their shipments moved to their customers two ways, either through direct trucking companies or through freight brokers.
All right.
So if shippers don't have the time to deal with trucking companies, they will hire freight brokers to deal with the trucking companies for them. Okay. That's the purpose of a freight broker. They provide the logistics. They are logistics providers. They arrange for the transportation and they charge for that service, right? So shippers give brokers what's called a load tender to either accept or reject this proposal, this deal.
Okay.
Let's say a load tender is paying, and what a load tender is I'm a shipper. I say, hey, I got freight I need to ship to my customer over here, this receiving facility, and I want to do it for $5,000.
Okay.
The value of the shipment is high enough. I can afford to pay you $5,000, Mr. Broker. Here's the load tender. Accept or reject that. If you accept it, then you are, as a broker, are responsible for getting that freight transported from my shipping facility through an approved motor carrier to the receiving facility. That's what brokering does. Okay.
So, like, there's some freight brokers that are making $300,000
for $500,000.
Okay. So how are they doing that?
Well, they have an abundance. Well, I won't say an abundance, but they have, let's say, 10 shippers.
Okay.
And each shipper is giving them 30 to 40 shipments to move per month, or load tenders to move per month. And then they have a fleet of trucks or trucking companies that are onboarded or approved for their freight brokerage. So they build up a large carrier network, or they could also be what's called asset based. They can have their own trucks internal with their brokerage. So they can, when they get the shipments from the shipper, they move them through their trucks first, and then whatever's left over, they can pass them on to the approved carriers and finish the process. So that's how it works.
So it's kind of like double dipping.
Triple dip, if you want to, but yes. Yeah,
because you get paid from the driver or the shipper, and you get paid from the people who actually have the freight to move.
Right. The shippers, you get the load tenders from the shipper. Okay. And then you take your margins off of that.
All right.
And then you pass the rest to the driver at a good rate, and then you make your money there too. So.
Okay. So the shipper is what's the shipper? So like people at home.
The shippers are the customers. So manufacturers, distribution centers, people who make the products to be shipped to retail stores or whatever like that. So if I'm a lumber manufacturer and I need to ship my lumber finished products to a facility that makes wooden furniture or whatever, right?
Okay.
I'm going to pay a freight broker to move those loads, whatever amount that is on the tender, to ship it, transport it via a motor carrier on a flatbed trailer to a store to make the finished product. Okay. So, yeah.
And then we're going to hire drivers.
The freight brokers are going to get the
broker
drivers.
Deal between the driver and the shipper.
That's correct. They're the middleman.
Okay. So the freight broker is going to broker a deal between the driver and the shipper.
That's correct. They arrange logistics, right? They're the logistics provider. They arrange for the transportation of freight by doing what SADON just said, getting it from the shipper and giving it to the motor carrier. And they make their percentage, their margins in that process. And some of the margins anywhere between 20 to 35% per load tenders. Now, in my training, I advise the new freight brokers to charge anywhere between 15 to 20% margins, because you're coming in new, you're coming in hot, you don't know anything yet, you haven't proven yourself to a shipper.
Okay.
So, right, you have to build your experience up.
Okay.
So
All right. So cool. So with all that said, you're doing something new because we're sitting in your new facility, by the way. So anybody's watching this on, we're sitting in the new facility.
welcome to the Exodus Logistics Learning Center.
All right. So what exactly is the Exodus Logistics Learning Center?
It is my man cave, which I hide from my wife. No, I'm just kidding. It is a learning center where I mainly I'm in the process of doing live in person, me personally, weekend trainings in dispatching and freight brokering. So on the dispatching side, they are going to be Saturdays and Sundays at 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. And then on the freight broker side, they will be Saturdays and Sundays from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Right now, we're going to do every first and third week of each month because every second, remember if I said earlier, every second and fourth week, I'm having my ongoing online training. So
Okay.
can't be two places at one time, right?
So what was the motivation behind actually building a school or a center, so to speak?
A center. I wanted to tap into the local demographic out here because I'm in an area here in the Hampton Roads area where there's transportation is kind of prevalent. We have a lot of ports here, trucks move through here a lot, and I wanted to tap into the area because I wanted to provide my service in person, in real time to the community, and teach them about transportation. So I'm also reaching out to local institutions, prison facilities to offer courses there as well, and other things I got on the plate as well that I won't mention right now.
Right.
Yeah,
Because there's some challenges in the Virginia Beach, Hampton Roads area, obviously. There's crime, there's a lot of transition in employment, and a lot of these kids are really looking for opportunities.
correct.
Okay. So if they came here, what would it look like for them?
If they came here, they will learn how to, well, we even talk about getting your CDL as well, so driving a truck. But if they came here, they will learn how to dispatch or they will learn how to broker, right?
Okay.
And I also bring in guests to actually present to them in real time that are local, who are brokers and who are dispatchers to kind of motivate them and say, hey, if this person can do it, so can I. So
Okay, so we got role models coming through, we got guest speakers, we got you, and they'll get to ask questions, they'll get to interact with you.
certainly,
And you actually get up and do some board work.
yes, I have. Yep, and I will.
Okay.
Yep.
So how would you say it works better for somebody if they're here in person?
So some people are like visual in-person type people. Some people
Okay.
can just learn online without having the person in front of them, things like that. So this being set up here is for those type of people who wants to get me in person and learn in person and be able to ask the questions live in real time, as opposed to over the internet on Zoom and things like that. So
what you're basically saying is that everybody doesn't learn online.
right,
Some people need to go old school.
correct. Everyone doesn't learn the same.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So
come on down. We're gonna do it the old-fashioned way with pen and paper.
yeah, and I'm going to ask questions and I'm going to write on the board and then turn around and say, what do you guys think? Give me some numbers, and things like that. So
And then it's good to get out of the house. It's good to be around other people.
right,
Good, like-minded, positive people.
networking.
Networking.
That networking. You forgot the networking piece. So yeah, that's very important.
So how long does a live class last?
So it's a weekend right now. It's weekend. I'm going to eventually at some point turn it into a week-long process. But right now, to motivate people to come in, it's just a weekend, Saturdays and Sundays. So Saturdays on the freight broker side, since we talk about freight brokering, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Saturdays and Sundays. So I'm assuming that's a good time because most people, it's not during the week where people work, right? And it's on the weekend where people get their stuff done like early in the weekend, and then in the evenings they can come over here and.
So you get all your housework, yard work, all those kinds of things done, and then come on over. So where are you located?
I am at 3101 American Legion Road, Suite 21A, Chesapeake, Virginia, 23321. That is in the Western Branch, North Suffolk area of Chesapeake, Suffolk, Portsmouth. So for those of you who are local, you're familiar with that area.
So are there some surrounding places like
Yes.
within an hour of here that if you live those places, you can still come here?
Yes. So any 7 cities is pretty much close radius, close proximity. Chesapeake, Norfolk, Portsmouth. Norfolk, you take the Midtown, you're here, get off at College Drive. Virginia Beach, the downtown tunnel, and then the 164, you're here. Suffolk, if you're in the Suffolk, like Main Street, you just come out 58 and then get on 664, get off at College Drive, you're here. So we're in I don't want to say we're in a centralized location, but it's a decent location. So
you could pretty much within 100 miles of here make it down, go to training, and then drive back home.
yes, you certainly can.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
100 miles.
that shipping extends out to them, right?
It does. So it's the 7 City Hampton Roads area, the northeast part of North Carolina, perhaps the western part of Virginia, the northern part of Virginia, Richmond area, if you know, and an eastern shore. So if you come to that area, and if you happen to be from out of the state or whatever, you're in here, you're in Virginia in this area visiting family, you want to stop in, by all means, come see me.
All right. Well, let's take a break and then we'll talk about a little bit more about what we got going on here at Exodus Learning Center.
All right.